Hello and welcome to your Left-Handed Bandit mobile paint party experience. Today's theme is going to be Haikyuu. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, possibly wrong. The character is Bokuto, possibly pronouncing that wrong as well. I'm going to take you through the steps of creating this character as far as painting him in. There is a pre-plotted image on canvas that should be in your kit that looks something similar to this. You should have several colors. We have the colors yellow, blue, purple, black, red, and white. We may not end up using every single one of those colors. However, it's good to have those colors on hand because you want to be able to mix up and create some new colors that we'll do in just a moment. You should also have a source of water, a cup of water. You should have a paper towel of some sort, as well as two brushes that were included in your kit, a big brush and a small brush, or a small brush and a sponge brush. So 2 brushes per kit is what you'll need for this. In addition to that, an easel is very, very helpful, but not completely necessary. You can lean your canvas against a stack of books or a heavy sauce jar, like a tomato jar or a can of tomato paste. They're nice and solid, something or anything that you can place behind your canvas just to prop it up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mix together our colors so that we can have our skin complexion for our character. So I have the paint cups that are included in the kit. I'm going to take just a couple of them off. I'm going to take my yellow off, my blue off, and my red. We're going to take these 3 colors and we're going to be mixing together a skin tone with some other colors as well. So start with your red, your blue, and your yellow. I'm just going to move them to the side so I can clear my plate. You want to have a nice, clear, clean palette so that you can mix your colors onto something. A paper plate works just fine. I'm going to take a large scoop of yellow paint. Nice scoop. So I'm going to grab yellow paint, and we're going to have just about the size of a quarter of yellow paint. From that yellow paint, I'm going to mix together just a touch of red, just a touch. Not as much red as we did yellow. Mix that together, and we're going to mix up orange. So I'm mixing my orange. If it's not orange enough, add more yellow. Do not add any more red. Add yellow only. About the size of a quarter is a good start. We can always mix up more later if we need to. So we have our orange. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our blue. And with the blue, we're going to grab just a small touch of blue. And we're going to mix that blue into that orange. And we should start getting some type of brown. So we're mixing these 3 primary colors together a specific way to get our brown paint. Any type of brown is going to be usable because we need to do one more thing to this paint in order to make it the proper skin tone. So we have our brown paint. On camera, it may look just a little bit orangey still, but we are looking for brown. So after we've successfully found and mixed our brown paint, we want to take white paint and lighten this tone up. So I'm going to take a nice scoop of white, and that white I'm going to add to the brown, and it's going to lighten our skin tone up. And I'm going to mix a good amount of white, not too much to blend out those tones, but just enough so that we can add to this amount of paint, because we're going to need to mix enough to cover the entire skin. Now, understand that this custom group may be a group of young artists, and I am going to show you some different things that you can do to your painting just to raise the overall effects and kind of add detail to it, so it's a piece that you're nice and proud of. But first, we're going to start with just the basics. I was using my paintbrush to mix up my colors, so before I begin my painting, I'm just going to clean my paintbrush in water by swishing it around. I'm not banging it to the bottom of my cup. I'm just lightly swishing it around. I'm tapping the brush on the side of my cup. I'm dabbing both sides of my paintbrush off on my paper towel so that I'm able to get the excess water out of my bristles, okay? So now I have a nice clean paintbrush, and I'm going to use this clean paintbrush to mix in my skin color. And I'm going to start with the arm. So with this arm, you can start anywhere on here. I'm going to lightly go over the edges of my outlines. I'm going to outline, and you can go ahead and do a complete fill-in if you'd like. But again, I understand that this group has some artists in it, so I'm going to show you a couple of things to automatically add detail to your painting. So notice what I'm doing is I'm painting along the edges of my character, and I'm leaving some open gaps here and there. So here on his muscle, I'm going to leave a little bit of an opening here underneath that muscle down here. And as I make my way up, I'm going to do the same thing and leave some openings. The reason for this is we can mix in other colors such as white to add detail to that skin so that the character doesn't look completely flat. And the reason we don't want that is because if we're looking for a detailed painting, we need to show elevations in the skin. We need to show the bulkier parts of the muscles that pop up and the parts of the arm that raise up just a little bit. And that white's going to help us do that. So take your time and get to somewhere close to here where we have different areas open on the arm so that we can mix in some white. Now, it doesn't have to look exactly like this, but we're looking for something close to this. So again, your painting does not have to look exactly like mine, but something close. And again, I am covering over outlines. I can always bring those back later in the painting. Don't worry about keeping all those outlines because we're going to end up bringing those back later in the painting. So when I do have those areas, and I stopped at my wrist for now, I'll come back to the hand later. We're using acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries really, really fast, so we have to go back and do different steps before we get too far ahead and add the paint in while it's still wet, because acrylic paint dries fast, within a few minutes usually. So now I've wiped the excess paint off of my paintbrush and onto my paper towel, and I got just a touch of white paint. With these open areas, I'm gonna go ahead and hold the paintbrush right in the middle and lightly wisp in my white paint. I'm lightly touching the canvas. I'm not pressing too hard. So lightly wisp against the canvas, and those colors are going to automatically blend together for you. So notice I'm blending in the bicep. I'm blending in this area underneath the bicep and the arm, which is the muscle in the arm. And I have a mixture of this darker tone and this lighter tone, which is going to automatically create more dimension and detail. So it's going to make different parts of our skin pop. Again, yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. As a reference, maybe check your neighbor's painting out. There is no reference that you can see, unfortunately, but we are going for something close to this. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're looking for something very close to this. Now, my paint is already starting to dry up here. So when I'm adding this white paint, it's going to re-wet that paint. And if I keep on wisping, then it's going to blend in nice and smooth. Later on, we can always go back and add more white to add even more detail to the skin complexion. But for now, I think that's looking pretty awesome. It's going to look even better when we have our outlines back in later on in the painting. So next, we're going to continue throughout the hand, and then from there, we're going to work on the head to finish all the skin complexion first in the painting and move to the other things later. So I'm moving up to the hand, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I am kind of freestyling these areas on the outline where I'm adding paint. And the same way I did with my arm, I'm going to leave some of these spaces open so that I can add white paint and create some detail in my painting and on my hand. So here, I think that's going to be pretty good. I'm wiping the excess paint off of my paintbrush and onto my paper towel. I'm going in and I'm grabbing some white paint and filling in those areas of paint that were left open. Again, we're using acrylic paint. You don't have to go as fast as I'm going. The awesome part about this virtual tutorial is that you can connect it to a TV or laptop or play it off your phone and pause it, rewind it as much as you need to. So again, don't worry about staying up with me as I'm trying my best to show you these steps as clear and concise. But if you need to rewind this video, feel free to rewind or pause if I'm moving just a little too fast. So now I got my hand filled in. Later on when that arm dries, I'm going to add more white to bring in more detail, but I'll show you that in just a bit. So I can still see some of my black outlines because it's a light skin complexion, which is awesome. That's going to make things very, very easy for me later. So now that my hands are all set for now, I'm going to move to the neck and the head, of course. But I'm going to be starting with the neck. So I'm going to use the same method and choose different areas of my neck to fill in. I'm doing this very randomly. There's no specific structure to how I'm doing this. I'm randomly choosing areas. I'm a little familiar with the anatomy of a human body, even though this is an anime, so I have more of an idea of what should and shouldn't be there. But to kind of guide you, the easiest thing I can tell you, the best tip I can give you, is pretend that you're actually painting a real neck. Look at your neighbor's neck. I know it sounds weird. Look at your neighbor's neck. Pay attention to your neck. Different parts of the neck have different muscles and structures that pop out more than other parts. So with this in mind is why I'm creating the negative spaces that I am creating. But again, I'm mentioning all that because you can create whatever negative spaces that you like. Wherever you want to create your shadows at with that skin complexion is your choice. No matter what you do, I'm sure it's going to look pretty dope. So I'm filling in these open areas with that white paint. I'm using the same method I used on my arm and my hand on that neck. You can still see some of my outlines underneath that paint. I'm moving to my head next. And with this head, I'm going to go ahead and start with the chin area, but you can really start anywhere. And I'm going to move just a little bit differently because I don't want to get paint in my eye openings. So maybe add a little bit of outline over here by the mouth. Usually the chin pops out a little bit, so I'm going to leave a little bit of opening on the chin right underneath that mouth. Super random spaces is what I'm doing. I'm avoiding the outside, the inside of this eyeball, so I'm going to paint around that. Usually the nose sticks out just a little bit more, so I'll leave a little bit of space in the nose. Usually under the nose is a bit darker. Our cheek muscles are a bit more rounded. Now, I'm going the extra limit to show you these different techniques. However, if you like a nice flat coat, and if it's just much more pleasing or much more easy to do that, then you can go ahead and paint just a nice flat coat of skin tone, and you don't have to do what I'm doing. But again, for any creatives in the group, I'm doing this to show you some new skills so that maybe you can take your craft to the next level. But if painting is not really your ultimate passion, if someone in the group is not that into art, it's okay. You know, this is still something that's nice to do that you can relax to and bring home a skilled painting and impress people with. So I'm painting in some white detail over here on the nose, underneath the mouth. That white kind of binds this paint together and finishes it off without too much extra work. And then once it dries up, I can go back and highlight other areas and bring out even more detail. So I'm going to leave a little bit of light showing on that forehead of his. I'm going to avoid the hair the best I can, avoid the eyebrows the best I can, get underneath the eyebrows and that hairline. Now I'm going to just, again, wipe the excess paint off, grab some white paint, and I'm going to fill in that forehead shape and fill in this little open area over here. I'm going to leave my eyeballs as they are for now. I can always do something in there later, but eventually I will have to paint the eyes. But right now, we'll avoid them. So now we successfully have filled in all of our skin complexion. So the next thing I want to move to is the actual hair and eyebrows of the character. So for this next step, we're going to need some gray paint. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to rinse it off in my water. Again, I'm not banging it on the bottom of the cup. I'm lightly swishing it, tapping it on a cup a couple times. dabbing both sides off on my paper towel to get that excess water out of the bristles. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a scoop of white paint, find a clean area on my palette, and I'm going to take a scoop of black paint, but just a teeny bit of black paint. So just a little bit of black paint is all I have. I'm going to add that to my white paint and mix up gray. And with this gray paint, we're going to get ready to start filling in our hair on our character. However, I'm going to use a similar method that I used when filling in the skin complexion. I'm going to paint certain parts of the character's hair with gray and leave other parts open. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off. Again, after I've mixed up my gray, tap it on the side of the cup, dab both sides off in your paper towel. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take that gray and I'm going to start right over here and paint in some areas of our character's hair in gray, fully in gray. But then when I start working my way up here to where there's more texture in the hair, I'm going to leave some spaces open so we can go in and add some detail in just a bit. So I'm randomly leaving hair open. I'm going to go ahead and do the entire head with this style, leaving some areas nice and full. Other areas where there's more texture, I'm going to leave it a little bit more open so we can mix in some more color. Back of the hair, I'm going to make a bit more solid. And then I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush once I've had all the hair area with something close to this. Now again, remember, if you just like the solid color, the solid fill better, or you're just painting a flat layer of paint, that is fine. Just try your best to avoid your outlines so you can see them in a little while. However, if you're going with this method, then we're going to take our white paint again, just that pure white paint, and I'm going to go into these open areas, and with these open areas, I'm going to go ahead and fill in paint. So I'm holding the paintbrush in the middle. I'm lightly wisping against the canvas. If I go outside of my hairline, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. And then we can always add more detail to this hair as it dries up for us. But we're trying to get a nice tone of that gray and that white for the character's hair mixed in there. So I'm going to get the other parts, these little straggles of hair that's kind of dangling down. I don't know the term for them. Now we have our hair pretty filled in for the most. So now that that's filled in, I'm going to move to the eyebrows next. And just to play it safe, I'm going to just do a solid fill in the eyebrows of that gray paint. I got one eyebrow, then I got the second. Now, a quick trick, if you smooth both sides of your paintbrush out in your paint, you can flatten your paintbrush and make it sharper and tighter where your lines will be a lot more concise, where they'll be sharper, flatter, and you can control it almost as if it's a pencil. So every time I grab paint for certain parts of this painting where I want a sharper, tighter line, I'm simply going to smooth both sides of my paintbrush out with my paint, and it's going to flatten your paintbrush out, and you'll be able to make more detailed lines. That'll come in handy later on in our painting. So we got our eyebrows and we got our hair done. So next, we're going to work on some details in the clothes. So I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush and onto my paper towel. And with this gray paint that's already on my paintbrush, I can utilize to my advantage. This section of our shirt is going to be filled with white. Now, before we begin this, you don't have to make your jersey the same color as I make mine. Since our skin complexion and our hair is done, this is a part of the painting where we can start getting a little bit more creative. The hard parts are pretty much done for the most. The rest of the painting is going to flow pretty fast and smoothly. So if you want to make your jersey different colors, you choose whatever colors you like and whatever style you like. For me, my original reference photo shows a black, white, and gold jersey. So therefore, I'm going to paint that the same pattern. So with this gray paint on my brush, or whatever color you like to use for your jersey, if you want to switch it up, I'm going to create some highlights and some tones. So these are the wrinkles in the jersey fabric that I'm randomly kind of painting details, and using the same method we use for the skin and for the hair, we're going to fill in some white paint, and it's just going to add more detail. So I am adding some gray streaks to my painting, and next I'm going to add the white in the filler areas. So now we're taking up an ample amount of this jersey fabric with white paint. So filling this on in. As you can see, the white is doing all the work for us. So all we have to do is whisk those colors in, and it'll blend nice and smoothly for us. So I'm going to remember to get inside of my number, and you can even change your number. I can show you how to do that after we got this white layer filled in. I'm going to get over here. This paint's already starting to dry up on me, so I'm going to move just a little bit faster. Again, we're using acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries very, very fast, so we have to speed our way through different parts of our paintings or go back and add more color, because with it drying so fast, it will actually, it can hold you up when you're painting, is the point that I'm trying to get at. So I'm just about done filling this white section of the shirt. I got a lot of gray mixed in there, so it's a bit mute, and I want to make that pop a lot more, but I can't do that until this paint is dry. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this section of my jersey alone for a bit and let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush and onto my paper towel, and I'm going to switch to my black paint. I don't have to dip it in water just yet. Black is a very strong, powerful color. Therefore, it's going to mute out any other colors that are mixed in with the brush. So I can comfortably go right back into my black paint with no issues. So with this black paint, I'm going to go ahead and fill in some other parts of my jerseys. I'm going to start with the collar. So I'm going to fill in the collar with a nice solid black. So solid black on the collar of the jersey. It's a V-neck because it's a soccer jersey. I'm going to go to the other side of the collar and meet the other end symmetrically. And then I'm going to continue to the other fabric on the jersey using that same method that I've been using throughout this painting so far. So I'm going to leave some of those spaces open, but not a lot, because this black paint is powerful. We want a little bit of gray detail showing on these sleeves, however, or whatever color you're using. However, we don't want too much. We want it to come across pretty dark and black, but we can leave a little bit of openings. So I got my openings. I'm wiping my excess paint off of my paintbrush and onto the paper towel. I'm going to grab some white paint, and I'm going to dabble some white paint in here, but I'm going to leave an area here and here open because there's a bit more color to the jersey. So I'm using this black and white to mix in some detail. I don't want it to be too gray. I want it to be more black than gray. So if you need to grab more black, feel free. Otherwise, when this dries up, you can always go in and add more colors back to it, which is probably what I'll end up doing. So I'm mixing a little bit of gray into that collar. Mixing some gray to this part of the collar, to this part of the jersey. This is a bit too gray for me, but it's too wet for me to darken now, so I'll just have to wait until this dries up. So see how it's just creating more gray as I add more into it? So I don't want that. So I want that to dry, and then I can go ahead and perfect that. What I'm going to do next is finalize we'll get ready to finalize this jersey. I have a number on my jersey that I want to fill in with a nice solid flat color. And then with this being filled in, I'm going to move here to put in my final color on the jersey. And after that, we'll work on some other things before we give the painting a quick break. So I'm finishing up my number. So, got our number filled in. I'm realizing that I forgot a part on my jersey right here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. Now that's filled in. And now that we have all our black filled in on our jersey, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my paintbrush off in water, get them nice and clean, tap them, dab them. And next, we're going to go ahead and add that gold in. So I'm just going to use my yellow in substitution of that gold. If you want more of a gold, you can add just a tiny amount of black to your yellow and then darken up to give you an old gold. I want this to be vibrant and pop, so I'll just add the yellow in, and some of that black is going to carry in and make that gold for me. I'm going to add to the other side as well. Similar effect. We can perfect the line work when the actual painting itself is dry. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get those eye colors filled in, the pupils. And in my reference, his eyes are green. So I'm going to mix up green. However, you can make his eyes whatever color you like, brown, whatever the case may be. I'm going to take just a teeny bit of yellow, and I'm going to take just a small touch of blue, and I'm going to mix those together. And that's going to give me a bit of a sappy green. So with this sappy green, I'm going to go ahead and fill in those pupils with this paint. I can still see the black in my eyes. This thing is starting to come together slowly but surely. And then the last thing I want to do before I let my painting dry on a break is I want to go ahead and fill in the background. Your kit came with either a larger brush or a sponge brush. I'm going to use my sponge brush, and I'm going to fill in the background all around the character. There's some openings in the hair up here. There's some openings behind the head, in front of the head, behind the hand, and underneath the arm. You can fill this in with whatever color you like. I think a color that will work well for this is going to be yellow. I may even mix in some of this green that I just mixed up for his eyes. But again, whatever color you like. I'm going to take some yellow paint and start filling it in. I grabbed a bit too much yellow, so I'm just going to distribute it around the canvas. Take your time with it. I don't want it to drip and get on the hard parts of the painting that you've already figured out. That's just going to make things a lot more complex. So I'm stretching this paint out just a little bit. You can turn your sponge brush in different directions to maneuver different corners and parts of your painting. So don't be afraid to move that sponge brush around. It's very versatile. It can do everything that a regular paintbrush can do. This is a paintbrush. This is just a foam paintbrush. So don't be afraid to play around with the angles on this brush. I'm going to leave some of my background open to add in some other colors. So now that I got the yellow on, you can either rinse your sponge brush in water or jump directly to the next color. I'm going to jump to the next color and add in a little bit of this green that I mixed up for his eyes, this eye green, wherever I can manage to get it. And then lastly, I'm going to wipe this off again, and I'm going to mix in some white paint to the remaining open areas to give me a nice little blend. So that's going to automatically do the work for me when I add these colors into the canvas. So I'm holding my brush in the middle the same way I did my smaller brush, and I'm lightly wisping the canvas, and Our colors are going to blend together. I'm going to take my time, turn my brush in different directions as I maneuver the areas closer to the actual image and the actual figure. I'm going to make sure there's no globs of paint. That's going to slow me down later. Smooth out any globs of paint. Even though it's acrylic and it dries fast, those globs of paint take just a little bit longer to dry. And you don't accidentally press your canvas against somebody or your chest or your shirt, and then now you get a nice glob of paint that just ruined whatever you're wearing. But the good thing is your kit should have come with an apron. So hopefully you're wearing that apron. If not, then this paint is water-based and it can come off fairly quickly and easily if you get it on your garment. So if you manage to get it on you, quickly go and wash it off and you should be fine. So I'm just taking my time and moving a little bit slower as I get to these last couple of parts of my character's background. I don't want to get any yellow inside the character's face or anything like that. So over here, turning my brush in different directions. Being careful around that hair. And making my way up to finish off this section. I'm going to get up here behind the top of the hair, and then lastly behind that neck. And now we have our background filled in nice and solid. Take a second to just make some touch-ups just to make sure you got it all filled in. And from here, we are going to let our canvas dry. So if you want to make some more adjustments or add some more things, feel free, of course. This is your painting. I'm going to let mine cool here. I'm going to drop both my brushes in water and let those soak a bit so that they're easy to use after my break. And I'm going to let this dry as it currently is. It's looking pretty awesome, not to toot my own horn so far. And hopefully yours is looking just as good on your end. But when this is completely dry, which will be within the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to come back and we're going to start part 2 of the video, and we're going to give it our line work and a couple more details, and then we'll be all set with our Haikyuu Bokuto painting, if I'm pronouncing that right. So I'm going to take this break and I'll see you for part 2 of the video.